The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor, and every head in the restaurant turned to watch Isabella Moretti's world end. Toast! Camila Duarte's voice rang out like a bell of condemnation, her hand resting possessively on the curve of her pregnant belly. To the barren queen who finally knows when to step aside. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, welcome to a story that will absolutely shake you. I'm so glad you're here with me today. Quick question before we dive deeper into Isabella's journey. Where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I love connecting with you all. And how are you doing today? I really want to know. Oh, and if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button right now because trust me, you don't want to miss how this story unfolds. This is one of those tales that will have you on the edge of your seat, crying, cheering, and believing in justice again. Now, let's get back to the moment that changed everything. Isabella's fingers had gone numb. The private dining room of Milano's most exclusive restaurant, the place where Leonardo Rossi had proposed to her 7 years ago, now served as the stage for her public execution. "Leonardo," she whispered, her eyes finding her husband's across the table. "Tell her to stop." But Leonardo wouldn't meet her gaze. His jaw was set, his hand inches from Camila's on the white tablecloth, and in that moment of his silence, Isabella felt something inside her chest crack clean through. Camila leaned forward, her red lips curling into a smile that held no warmth. "Oh, sweetie, did you really think he'd choose you?" She placed both hands on the glass and for one wild moment considered throwing it directly at Camila's smug face. But her hand froze midair when she caught her own reflection in the restaurant's gilded mirror. Hollow eyes, sunken cheeks. The body she'd punished with medications and procedures, the soul she'd starved trying to become worthy of keeping her husband's love. When did I become so small? The glass slipped from her fingers, splashing Merlot across the white tablecloth like a bloodstain. "I loved you," she whispered to Leonardo. "Through everything. Every doctor's appointment, every negative test, every pitying look from your family, I loved you. And you let her mock me. You sat there and let her destroy me in front of everyone." Leonardo's jaw tightened. "You're being dramatic. I'm being honest." Isabella's voice steadied, something cold and clear crystallizing in her chest. "And here's some honesty for you. I hope that baby gives you everything you think you want. I hope Camila gives you the life you believe you deserve. Because one day, Leonardo Rossi, you're going to realize what you threw away. And it will be too late." She turned to leave, but Camila's voice stopped her one last time. "Oh, Isabella? One more thing." The mistress's smile widened. "I'm already living in your home. Leonardo moved me in last month. I redecorated your bedroom. It was far too virginal for my taste. I hope you don't mind." The women at the table gasped, but no one spoke in Isabella's defense. Not one person. Isabella walked out of that restaurant with her head high and her heart in pieces, unaware that the broken woman leaving Milano that night would return as something far more powerful than Leonardo Rossi's discarded wife. She would return as a force of nature. And when she did, the people who mocked her pain would learn a truth as old as time itself. A woman with nothing left to lose is the most dangerous creature alive. What would you do in Isabella's position? Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and I want to hear your story too. Isabella made it to her car before the tears came. Her hands shook so violently she couldn't fit the key into the ignition. The valet, a young man who'd always greeted her warmly, pretended not to notice as she sat in the driver's seat of her Mercedes, shoulders heaving with silent sobs that tore through her chest like shrapnel. 6 years. 6 years of her life poured into a marriage that had just been dissolved over champagne and cruelty. When she could finally breathe again, Isabella started the engine and drove. Not to the penthouse she'd shared with Leonardo. She couldn't bear the thought of Camila's things contaminating spaces that had once been sacred. Not to her parents' home in Verona, where her mother would say, "I told you so," with her eyes, if not her words. Instead, she drove to the only place that had ever truly been hers. The cottage sat on the outskirts of Milano, tucked between olive groves and wild lavender fields. Isabella's Nonna Rosa had left it to her when she died 3 years ago, a small stone house with blue shutters and a garden that bloomed year-round. Isabella had kept it secret from Leonardo's family, some instinct telling her to preserve this one thing that the Rossi name couldn't touch. She'd spent weekends here alone, tending the roses and reading in the sun, pretending the weight of expectation couldn't reach her among the lavender. Now, as she stumbled through the front door and collapsed onto the worn sofa, it felt less like family. The tests had revealed nothing wrong. Both of them were perfectly healthy. Sometimes it just takes time, the doctor had assured them. Relax. Stop trying so hard. Let nature take its course. But the Rossi family didn't believe in letting nature take its course. They believed in control, in results, in legacies that stretched back centuries. By the 3rd year, Isabella had undergone 4 rounds of IVF. The hormones had ravaged her body, turning her emotional and exhausted. Leonardo had grown distant, spending longer hours at work, traveling more frequently. "I'm sorry," Isabella had whispered after each failed procedure, and Leonardo would hold her and say it wasn't her fault. But his eyes told a different story. The 4th year, Sophia had started making comments at family dinners. Little Barb's wrapped in concern. "Perhaps you're too stressed, dear. All that work you used to do with those dusty paintings, maybe it affected your system." Or, "Leonardo's cousin is expecting twins. Their 3rd pregnancy. Some women are just more naturally maternal." Isabella had stopped attending family gatherings unless absolutely necessary. She'd stopped going to her studio, stopped seeing friends who posted pictures of their growing families. Her entire existence had narrowed to a single purpose. Get pregnant. Give Leonardo a child. Prove your worth. The 5th year, she'd barely recognized herself in the mirror. And the 6th year, Camila Duarte had entered their lives. Isabella had met the Mistress before she became the Mistress, though she hadn't known it at the time. Camila had been hired as a consultant for Rossi International's expansion into South America. 28, stunning, sharp as a blade. She'd attended several dinner parties at the penthouse, and Isabella had actually liked her at first. "You have such a beautiful home," Camila had gushed, her accent lilting and exotic. "And Leonardo speaks so highly of you. He says you're the most devoted wife he could ask for." Devoted, not passionate. Not irreplaceable. Devoted, like a well-trained dog. Isabella had noticed Leonardo's eyes following Camila across the room. Had noticed the way he laughed at her jokes, leaned close when she spoke. But she told herself she was being paranoid, insecure because of the fertility struggles. She told herself right up until the moment she'd found them together. It had been 3 months ago. Isabella had come home early from a doctor's appointment, another negative pregnancy test, another crushing disappointment. She'd climbed the stairs to their bedroom, thinking she'd lie down, maybe cry in private before Leonardo got home from work. But Leonardo was home. And so was Camila. The image of them tangled in the sheets of her marriage bed, the bed where she'd cried herself to sleep so many nights, was seared into Isabella's brain like a brand. Leonardo had scrambled up, shouting her name, but Isabella had already turned and run. She'd driven for hours, ending up at Nonna Rosa's cottage, where she'd stayed for 3 days before Leonardo found her. It was a mistake, he'd sworn, kneeling in front of her, gripping her hands. A moment of weakness. "I was stressed about the expansion, about the pressure from my family, and she was there, and God, Isabella, I'm so sorry." It meant nothing. And because Isabella had been raised to believe marriage was sacred, because she'd invested 6 years of her life, because some desperate part of her still believed she could fix this, she'd forgiven him. "But you have to cut off all contact with her," Isabella had demanded. "Fire her. Send her back to Brazil. I never want to see her again. Leonardo had agreed, had seemed genuinely remorseful. But men like Leonardo Rossi didn't give up things they wanted. They just got better at hiding them. Now, curled on the sofa in her grandmother's cottage, Isabella understood the truth with brutal clarity. Leonardo had never ended the affair. He'd simply been more careful. And when Camilla had gotten pregnant, the one thing Isabella couldn't seem to do, he'd made his choice. Not the wife who'd loved him unconditionally. The mistress who could give him an heir. Her phone, abandoned across the room, suddenly buzzed to life despite being turned off. Someone was calling repeatedly. Probably Leonardo's lawyers, eager to push through the divorce before the scandal could damage the Rossi reputation. Isabella ignored it. Instead, she walked to the small desk in the corner where she kept her grandmother's things. Nana Rosa had been a force of nature, a woman who'd survived World War II, buried 2 husbands, and built a successful restaurant with her own hands. Men will disappoint you, Tesoro, she told Isabella once, near the end. Even good men. Even men who love you. But you are made of stronger stuff than you know. You are Moretti. We don't break. We rebuild. In the desk drawer, Isabella found what she was looking for, a leather-bound journal filled with her grandmother's handwriting, and tucked inside it, an envelope with Isabella's name on it. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a bank statement, an account in Isabella's name that she'd never known existed. The balance made her gasp out loud. Nana Rosa had left her more than just the cottage. She'd left her freedom. A note fell from the envelope, written in her grandmother's elegant script. My dearest Isabella, asterisk, if you're reading this, you've reached a crossroads. I won't pretend to know which path brought you here, but I know my granddaughter. You give too much. You forgive too easily. You've forgotten that love without respect is just another word for surrender. Asterisk, asterisk, this money is yours. No one knows about it except my lawyer, and now you. Use it to build something new. Use it to remember who you were before someone else told you who to be. Asterisk, asterisk, you carry my blood, child. And Moretti women don't beg for scraps from men's tables. We build our own feasts. Asterisk, con tutto il mio amore. Nana Rosa. Isabella read the note 3 times, tears streaming down her face. But this time, they weren't tears of grief. They were tears of awakening. She'd spent 6 years shrinking herself, apologizing for her body's perceived failures, accepting crumbs of affection from a man who'd promised her the world. She'd let the Rossi family convince her she was broken, defective, less than. But what if they were wrong? What if the problem wasn't her womb, but the toxic soil she'd been trying to grow in? Isabella stood, walked to the mirror hanging above the fireplace, and looked at herself, really looked, for the first time in years. The woman staring back was thin, exhausted, haunted. But beneath the damage, she could still see traces of the girl who'd walked through galleries with stars in her eyes, who'd believed broken things could be made beautiful again. I can restore myself, she thought. I can be my own masterpiece. Her phone buzzed again. This time, Isabella picked it up. 23 missed calls, 15 text messages, and 1 voicemail from a number she didn't recognize. She played it. Ms. Moretti, my name is Elena Abbott, and I'm an attorney specializing in family law. A mutual friend suggested I reach out to you. I understand you may be going through a difficult situation. I want you to know that you have options, and that you don't have to face this alone. Leonardo's response came within minutes. Asterisk, don't be ridiculous. My lawyers will contact you tomorrow with a fair settlement. Accept it and move on with dignity. Asterisk, dignity. Isabella stared at the word until it blurred. She'd preserved his dignity through 6 years of pitying looks from his family. She'd protected his dignity by suffering in silence while his mother criticized everything from her cooking to her bone structure. She'd maintained his precious dignity even after finding him in bed with another woman. And now he dared lecture her about it? Her phone rang. Elena Abbott's number. Isabella answered on the second ring. Ms. Moretti. The woman's voice was crisp, professional, but not unkind. I hope I'm not overstepping by calling so soon. But in situations like these, time is often a weapon used against you. I wanted to make sure you had representation before you were pressured into signing anything you'd regret. How did you know? Isabella's voice came out hoarse. About my situation? I have a friend who works at Ristorante Bellini. She witnessed what happened tonight. A pause. She also witnessed you walk out of there with more grace than most people could manage. But grace doesn't protect your legal rights, Ms. Moretti. I can. Isabella closed her eyes. Leonardo's family, the Rossis, they have the best lawyers in Italy. Probably in Europe. What makes you think the best lawyers money can buy aren't the same as the best lawyers, period? Elena's tone sharpened. I've gone up against the Rossi legal team before. I know their tactics. They'll try to rush you into a settlement before you realize what you're entitled to. Community property, shares in the business, compensation for the years you spent building his career, instead of your own. They'll offer you the villa in Tuscany and a monthly allowance that sounds generous, but is actually a fraction of what you deserve. Isabella's breath caught. He already offered exactly that. Of course he did. It's page 1 of their playbook. Papers rustled in the background. Ms. Moretti, may I call you Isabella? I'm going to be direct with you, because I think you've had enough of people dancing around the truth. Your husband committed adultery. His mistress is pregnant. Under Italian law, that strengthens your position considerably, especially if the affair began while you were still attempting fertility treatments he was aware of. The clinical assessment of her devastation should have hurt, but instead it felt clarifying. This wasn't about emotion anymore. It was about strategy. What do you need from me? Isabella asked. First, don't sign anything. Second, don't leave the cottage for a few days. I assume you're at a private location? When Isabella confirmed, Elena continued. Good. Let them wonder where you are. Uncertainty makes powerful people nervous. Third, meet me tomorrow afternoon. I'll need details about your marriage, the family business, any documentation you have. And Isabella? Bring everything. Bank statements, emails, text messages. If you have any evidence of the affair predating tonight, that's crucial. Isabella thought of the lipstick she'd found in Leonardo's car 4 months ago. The receipts for jewelry she'd never received. The late-night phone calls he'd taken in the next room, returning with his shirt buttoned wrong. I have evidence, she said quietly. Then we have a case. 2 o'clock tomorrow, my office. I'll text you the address.
Elena paused.
One more thing. Are you safe? Does he know where you are? The question sent a chill through Isabella. I don't think so. This place belonged to my grandmother. I never told his family about it. Keep it that way. I've seen these situations escalate when men like Leonardo Rossi feel their control slipping. I'm not saying he'd hurt you physically, but there are many ways to hurt someone. Stay where you are. I'll see you tomorrow. After they hung up, Isabella sat in the growing darkness, her mind racing. She'd sent that text message on impulse, driven by rage and heartbreak.
But now,
it was real. She was actually going to fight. The thought terrified and exhilarated her in equal measure. Isabella didn't sleep that night. Instead, she did what she'd always done when the world felt chaotic. She organized. She went through every email, every text message, every photo on her phone. She created folders, timelines, evidence of a marriage that had rotted from the inside while she'd been too desperate to notice. There, Leonardo's credit card statement from 8 months ago, showing charges at a boutique hotel in Lake Como on a weekend he'd claimed to be at a business conference in Munich. There, a text exchange where Camila had accidentally sent Isabella a message clearly meant for someone else. Asterisk, he's working late again. The wife suspects nothing. God, this is almost too easy. Asterisk, Isabella had thought it was a wrong number at the time. Had even responded politely to say so. Now she saw it for what it was, Camila's cruelty, barely disguised as an error. And there, the most damning evidence of all. A series of emails between Leonardo and his mother, dated from 2 years ago. Asterisk mother. Isabella's latest treatment failed again. Dr. Marchetti suggests we consider a surrogate or adoption. I can't keep doing this. The board is starting to ask questions about succession planning. Asterisk asterisk my son, you know my feelings on this matter. A Rossi heir must be blood. If Isabella cannot provide that after reasonable time and medical intervention, perhaps it's time to consider other options. There's no shame in recognizing an incompatible match. Asterisk asterisk other options? You mean divorce? Asterisk asterisk I mean whatever is necessary to secure our family's future. Your father and I didn't build this empire to watch it crumble because you married for love instead of practicality. You're 35 years old, Leonardo. How much longer are you willing to wait for something that may never happen? Asterisk the emails continued, growing more explicit. Sophia had actually suggested specific women from good families as potential replacements. She discussed the PR strategy for ending the marriage with minimal scandal. This wasn't a recent betrayal born of frustration and opportunity. This had been planned. Isabella's hands shook so badly, she nearly dropped her phone. The woman she'd tried desperately to please for 6 years, who'd criticized her cooking and her wardrobe and her failure to produce children, that woman had been plotting to replace her for at least 2 of those years. And Leonardo had gone along with it. The cottage walls suddenly felt too close. Isabella grabbed her jacket and stepped outside into the cool November night. The moon hung full and bright above the olive groves, painting everything in silver. She walked until she reached Nana Rose's garden, now wild and overgrown without her grandmother's careful tending. But even in its chaos, things grew. Roses climbed the stone wall. Lavender spread like purple water between the paths. Life finds a way, Isabella thought. Even when you think the soil is dead, she'd spent 6 years believing her body was the problem. 6 years of medications and procedures and prayers. 6 years hating herself for being broken. But what if she wasn't broken at all? What if her body had simply refused to bring a child into a toxic marriage with a man who was already planning her replacement? The thought struck her like lightning, illuminating everything. Her grandmother had always said the body kept score, remembered what the mind tried to forget. Maybe Isabella's womb hadn't failed her. Maybe it had protected her. She was still in the garden when headlights swept across the cottage at 3 a.m. Isabella's heart hammered as a car door slammed. Heavy footsteps on the gravel path. Then Leonardo's voice, calling her name with an edge of panic she'd never heard before. Isabella, I know you're here. Your car is in the driveway. We need to talk. She considered staying hidden among the lavender, but something in his tone made her curious. She stepped onto the path where he could see her. Leonardo looked terrible. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair disheveled, his eyes bloodshot. Thank God, he breathed. I've been calling for hours. When you didn't answer, I thought. He stopped himself. We need to talk about that text message you sent. The one where I said I wanted everything you took from me? Isabella crossed her arms. I meant it. You're upset. You have every right to be. But, Isabella, be reasonable. This doesn't have to be ugly. My lawyers have prepared a very generous. I'm not signing anything your lawyers prepared. Leonardo's expression shifted, his jaw tightening. Then you're being foolish. You don't have the resources to fight me. And trust me, if you try to drag this out, it will get very expensive and very public. Is that really what you want? There it was. The threat wrapped in concern. How many times had he used that tone with her? Asterisk if you keep obsessing over getting pregnant, you'll make yourself sick. If you don't attend my mother's luncheon, it will cause problems for both of us. If you insist on working with those dusty paintings, people will think we need the money. Asterisk always framing his control as protection. Always making his demands sound like her idea. What I want, Isabella said slowly, is a husband who honors his vows. Since I can't have that, I'll settle for what I'm legally entitled to. Leonardo took a step closer, and for the first time in their marriage, Isabella saw something dangerous flicker across his face.
Don't do this.
You think some lawyer can help you? The Rossi family has connections you can't imagine. We can make your life very difficult. More difficult than being publicly humiliated by your pregnant mistress? More difficult than finding out your own mother has been plotting to replace me for years. His eyes widened. How did you, the emails, Leonardo? Between you and Sophia. You discussed me like I was a broken appliance you were deciding whether to repair or replace. Isabella's voice remained eerily calm. Did you ever love me? Or was I always just a placeholder until someone better came along? Something like shame flickered across his features, but it was gone in an instant. I did love you. I do. But marriage is complicated. There are expectations, responsibilities. Then you should have divorced me before you screwed someone else in our bed. The crudeness made him flinch. Leonardo Rossi had always prided himself on sophistication, on handling things with elegance and discretion. Camila was a mistake, he tried again. If you just give me time to think, to figure out what? How to have both of us. Your respectable wife for appearances and your mistress for everything else. Isabella laughed, but there was no humor in it. She's pregnant, Leonardo. You're going to be a father. There's nothing to figure out. You made your choice. My mother made demands. The board was pressuring me. You don't understand the position I was in. No, you don't understand. You had a wife who loved you unconditionally, who would have walked through fire for you, who destroyed herself trying to give you what you wanted. Isabella's voice cracked, but she pushed through. And you threw her away like garbage. So now you get to live with that choice. With Camila and her baby and your mother's approval. I hope it's everything you dreamed of. Leonardo's face hardened. If you fight this divorce, I'll make sure everyone knows about your mental instability. The depression after each failed treatment. The medication you were on. I'll paint you as an unbalanced woman making vindictive accusations against a husband who tried everything to help her. There it was. The real Leonardo, stripped of charm and pretense. You can try, Isabella said softly. But I have receipts for every hotel room, every piece of jewelry, every lie. I have emails from your mother planning my replacement. I have photos of Camila's belongings in our home dated weeks before you claim the affair started. So by all means, Leonardo, tell the world I'm crazy. I'll tell them the truth. He stared at her like she'd become a stranger. Perhaps she had. This isn't you, he said finally. You're kind. You don't fight dirty. You're right. I don't. But I'm also done being kind to people who see kindness as weakness. She turned back toward the cottage. Go home to your mistress, Leonardo. And tell your lawyers I'll see them in court. Isabella, leave.
Now.
Before I call the police and report you for trespassing. She walked away without looking back, half expecting him to follow, to grab her arm, to do something. But he didn't. She heard his car door slam, the engine start, gravel crunching under tires as he drove away. Only then did Isabella allow herself to collapse against the cottage door, shaking with adrenaline and terror and something that felt almost like pride. She'd stood up to Leonardo Rossi, and the world hadn't ended. In fact, standing there in the darkness with her heart racing and her future uncertain, Isabella felt more alive than she had in years. Her phone buzzed with a text from Elena Abbott. *, my investigator found something. It changes everything. See you at 2 p.m. Don't be late. *, Isabella stared at the message, her mind spinning with possibilities. What could change everything when her entire world had already been destroyed? She was about to find out. What do you think Elena discovered? Drop your theories in the comments. I love reading your guesses. And if you're as invested in Isabella's story as I am, hit that subscribe button because part 4 is going to absolutely blow your mind. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. Elena Abbott's office occupied the top floor of a sleek building in Milan's financial district. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, and the minimalist decor screamed competence and power, exactly the opposite of the stuffy, old-world aesthetic favored by the Rossi family lawyers. Isabella arrived 15 minutes early, her stomach in knots. Elena emerged from her office precisely at 2 o'clock, a woman in her early 40s with sharp features, silver streaking through her black hair, and eyes that missed nothing. Isabella. She extended her hand. Thank you for trusting me.
Come in.
The office was surprisingly warm despite its modern lines. Photographs lined one wall, Elena with various women, all smiling, all looking victorious. Legal victories, Isabella realized. Divorce cases won. You help women leave bad marriages, Isabella said softly. I help women reclaim their lives, Elena corrected, gesturing to a chair. There's a difference. Now, before we discuss what my investigator found, I need you to understand something. The road ahead won't be easy. The Rossis will use every resource at their disposal to pressure you into accepting their terms. They'll freeze accounts, turn mutual friends against you, make you question your own sanity.
Can you handle that?
Isabella thought of Leonardo's face last night when she'd refused to back down. The shock in his eyes when his usual tactics hadn't worked. I've spent 6 years having my sanity questioned, she said. At least now I'll be fighting back. Elena smiled, a real smile that transformed her severe features.
Good.
Because what I'm about to tell you requires courage. She opened a folder, slid several documents across the desk. My investigator looked into Camila Duarte's background. And, Isabella, there are some very interesting inconsistencies. Isabella scanned the first page. She lied about her credentials? More than that, Camila Duarte isn't who she claims to be. Her employment history shows gaps, periods where she appears to have been involved in relationships with wealthy, married men. 3 times in the past 8 years, she's been named in divorce proceedings. And in each case, she became pregnant. The words hit Isabella like ice water. She's done this before? Targeted married men, gotten pregnant, then disappeared once she received a financial settlement. One of those men was a Portuguese businessman who later discovered the child wasn't his. He tried to sue, but Camila had already left the country with the money. Elena tapped another document. Here's where it gets interesting. 2 months before Camila was hired at Rossi International, she attended a charity event your mother-in-law organized. I have photos of them talking. Isabella's hands trembled as she looked at the photograph. Sofia Rossi and Camila Duarte had spent together in conversation, both smiling. You think Sofia hired her? To seduce Leonardo? I think Sofia wanted you out of the picture and needed a catalyst. A young, beautiful woman who specializes in seducing married men and getting pregnant. That's quite a catalyst. Elena leaned forward. But here's the real bombshell, Isabella. According to medical records my investigator obtained, legally, I assure you, Camila has had multiple abortions. She's been pregnant at least 5 times that we can document. Each pregnancy coincided with a relationship with a wealthy man. Isabella's mind reeled. So the baby may or may not be Leonardo's. May or may not even exist beyond the first trimester, if her pattern holds. But regardless, she's being paid to play a role. And I bet everything I own that Sofia Rossi is writing the checks. The room tilted. Isabella gripped the arms of her chair, trying to process this new reality. Her mother-in-law hadn't just tolerated Leonardo's affair, she'd orchestrated it. Had brought in a professional mistress to destroy a marriage she decided was inconvenient. Can we prove it? Isabella's voice came out hoarse. Can we prove Sofia paid Camila to seduce Leonardo? We're working on it. Bank records, phone logs, it takes time. But Isabella, even without that proof, we have enough to cause serious problems for the Rossi family. The revelation that Leonardo's pregnant mistress is a con artist with a history of entrapping married men, that's a PR nightmare. And if we push hard enough, Sofia will panic. Panicked people make mistakes. What do you need me to do? Elena's smile turned predatory. First, we file for divorce on your terms, not his. We claim half of everything acquired during your marriage, including shares in Rossi International. We cite adultery, emotional cruelty, and, this is important, we demand a paternity test for Camila's baby before any acknowledgement of paternity. He'll fight it. His family, let them fight. Every day this drags out. More questions get asked. More reporters start digging. The Rossi reputation is built on tradition and respectability. What happens when people discover the matriarch hired a professional mistress to destroy her son's marriage?
When they
Learn Leonardo's heir might not be his at all. Elena's eyes glinted. We don't have to win in court, Isabella. We just have to make the truth more expensive than giving you what you deserve. It was brilliant and terrifying. Isabella had never fought like this, never played games with people's reputations and futures. But then again, they'd been playing games with hers for years. Do it, she said. File everything. The news broke 3 days later. Isabella had stayed at the cottage, following Elena's advice to remain out of sight. But she watched the explosion from her laptop, refreshing news sites obsessively. Rossi heir embroiled in divorce scandal. Leonardo Rossi's mistress, who is Camila Duarte. Sources question paternity of Rossi baby. Elena had leaked just enough to reputable journalists to start an avalanche. Within hours, Camila's face was everywhere, and so was her history. Reporters had tracked down the Portuguese businessman, who gave a scathing interview about being deceived. Isabella's phone exploded with calls and messages. She ignored all of them except Elena's updates and one unexpected text from her younger sister, Valentina. I always hated him. Come stay with me in Barcelona. You need to get out of Italy. Isabella stared at the message. She and Valentina had never been particularly close. Her sister was 5 years younger. Wild where Isabella was careful, adventurous where Isabella was cautious. They'd grown apart after Isabella's marriage, especially when Valentina had made her disapproval of Leonardo painfully clear. Why Barcelona? Isabella typed back. Because it's far enough from the Rossis that you can breathe. Because I have a spare room and excellent wine. Because you're my sister and you need family right now. Real family, not those vultures you married into. Something in Isabella's chest loosened. I'll think about it. Don't think. Just come. I'll send you my address. Before Isabella could respond, her phone rang.
Elena.
Turn on Channel 5, the lawyer said without preamble.
Now.
Isabella fumbled for the remote, found the news channel. Her stomach dropped. Leonardo stood outside Rossi International headquarters, microphones thrust in his face, looking haggard and cornered. These allegations about Camila are absurd, he was saying. She's a respected consultant with an impeccable record. My wife is clearly unstable, lashing out because our marriage failed. I've tried to be generous in the settlement, but she's refused every reasonable offer. Is it true you're demanding a paternity test? A reporter shouted. Is your mother involved with Ms. Duarte? Called another. Did you begin the affair while your wife was undergoing fertility treatments? Leonardo's composure cracked. This interview is over. He pushed through the crowd, his security team forming a barrier. But the damage was done. He'd looked guilty, defensive, exactly like a man caught in a web of his own making. He's panicking, Elena said in Isabella's ear. They all are. I've received 3 calls from Rossi lawyers today, each offering better terms than the last. They want this to go away. What did you tell them? That my client will accept nothing less than full financial disclosure, half of all marital assets including business holdings, and a public apology from Leonardo for his adultery and defamation.
Elena paused.
They laughed. But they'll stop laughing soon. Isabella should have felt victorious. Instead, she felt hollow. This was her life being dissected on television, her pain turned into entertainment for millions. Elena, I need to get away for a while. My sister invited me to Barcelona. Actually, that's perfect. Let them think you fled. It makes you look sympathetic, the wounded wife escaping her tormentors.
Go.
I'll handle things here and keep you updated. Isabella threw clothes into a suitcase without really seeing them. She left the cottage at dawn, driving toward the border with a strange sense of unreality. She was running away. Again. But this time felt different. This time, she was running toward something instead of just away. The drive to Barcelona took 9 hours. Isabella stopped only for gas and coffee, her mind cycling through everything that had happened in the past week. A week ago, she'd been preparing for what she thought was a dinner with her husband. Now she was fleeing Italy while news outlets speculated about her marriage's destruction. Valentina's apartment was in the Gothic quarter, all narrow streets and ancient buildings. Her sister met her at the door. Petite where Isabella was tall, blonde where Isabella was dark, but with the same Moretti cheekbones and fierce eyes. "You look like hell," Valentina said, pulling her into a fierce hug. "I feel like hell."
Good.
"That means you're still feeling. Come on, I made food." The apartment was small but beautiful, decorated with textiles from Valentina's travels and paintings from local artists. Her sister worked as a freelance photographer, traveling the world shooting everything from weddings to war zones. Over pasta and wine, Isabella told her everything. Not the sanitized version she'd given Elena, but the raw truth, the desperation of the fertility treatments, the humiliation of Sophia's criticisms, the devastation of finding Leonardo with Camilla. "I should have seen it coming," she said, tears streaming. "All the signs were there." "Stop that." Valentina's voice was sharp. "You trusted your husband. That's not a failing, Isabella. That's what marriage is supposed to be. He's the one who broke it, not you. I wasted 6 years. You survived 6 years in a toxic family that tried to break you. And you're still here, still fighting. That's not weakness, Sorella. That's strength." Isabella wanted to believe her, wanted to feel strong instead of shattered. "What do I do now?" she whispered. Valentina poured more wine. "You rebuild, one day at a time. And tomorrow, you start by coming with me to a gallery opening. My friend Alejandro is showcasing his photography collection, and you need to remember what you used to love before Leonardo Rossi made you forget. I can't go to a party. It's not a party. It's art. And you're an art restorer, remember? Or you were, before you gave up everything for a man who didn't deserve you." Valentina's eyes softened. "Please, Isabella. You've spent years hiding. One night. Just remind yourself who you used to be." The next evening, Isabella stood in front of her sister's closet, feeling like an imposter. Everything Valentina owned was bold, colorful, nothing like the muted, conservative clothes Isabella had worn to please the Rossi family. "Wear this." Valentina held up a deep blue dress, simple but elegant, with a neckline that actually suggested Isabella had collarbones. "It's too much. It's perfect. Trust me." The gallery was small, intimate, tucked into a converted warehouse. Photographs lined the walls, stunning images of Spanish landscapes, architectural details, moments of raw human emotion captured in black and white. "Alejandro Cruz," Valentina said, pointing to a man across the room. "He's brilliant. Grew up poor in Madrid, taught himself photography. Now his work is in museums across Europe." And she grinned. "He's single." "Valentina, I'm still married, technically. But you're also allowed to have a conversation with an attractive man without the world ending. Come on." Before Isabella could protest, her sister was dragging her across the room. Alejandro Cruz was perhaps 40, with silver threading through his dark hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. He was talking animatedly with a small group, his hands gesturing as he described the inspiration behind a particular photograph. When he turned and saw Valentina, his face lit up.
"Mi amiga."
"You came?" "Of course. And I brought my sister." Valentina pulled Isabella forward. "Alejandro, this is Isabella. She actually knows about art, unlike me. She's an art restorer." "Was," Isabella corrected softly. "I haven't worked in years." Alejandro's gaze fixed on her. intense and curious.
Why?
Did you stop? The question was so direct, so without pity or judgment, that Isabella found herself answering honestly. I got married. My husband thought I should focus on other things. What things could be more important than bringing beauty back into the world? He said it like a genuine question, not flattery. Making heirs, apparently. The words came out bitter, and Isabella immediately regretted them. I'm sorry, that was honest, Alejandro finished. I appreciate honesty. Come, let me show you something. He led her to a photograph in the back corner. It showed a crumbling church in Barcelona, half destroyed, plants growing through cracks in the stone. But the way he'd captured the light made the destruction look almost sacred. Everyone wanted me to photograph the church before the earthquake, he said quietly, when it was perfect and whole. But I think it's more beautiful now. The cracks let the light in. They show what survived. Isabella stared at the image, remembering the conversation she'd had with Leonardo 7 years ago in the Galleria Borghese. Asterisk, the cracks are part of the story. They show what survived. Asterisk, you understand, she whispered. When she looked up, Alejandro was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite name. Yes, he said simply. I think I do. For the first time in a week, in years, maybe, Isabella felt like someone actually saw her. Not Leonardo's barren wife. Not the Rossi family's disappointing daughter-in-law. Just her. Her phone buzzed in her purse. A text from Elena. Asterisk, emergency. Call me immediately. Asterisk, Isabella's stomach dropped. I'm sorry, I have to. It's okay. Alejandro pulled out a card, pressed it into her hand. If you ever want to talk about art, or cracks that let the light in, or anything else. Their fingers touched briefly, and Isabella felt something she thought had died in that restaurant, a spark of possibility. Then she was stepping outside into the Barcelona night, dialing Elena, and hearing words that made her blood run cold. Leonardo knows where you are, and he's on his way to Barcelona. Isabella, you need to get somewhere safe.
Now.
What do you think Leonardo will do? And are you Team Alejandro already? Or is it too soon? Let me know in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed because the next part is where everything accelerates, and trust me, you do not want to miss it. Isabella's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped her phone. What do you mean he's on his way? How did he find me? I don't know yet, but my contact at the airport confirmed Leonardo Rossi boarded a flight to Barcelona 3 hours ago. He should be landing any minute. Elena's voice was tight with urgency. Isabella, listen to me carefully. Do not go back to your sister's apartment. Do not go anywhere predictable. Find a hotel, check in under a fake name, and text me the address. I'm calling the police too. The police can't help. He hasn't done anything illegal. Isabella's mind raced. She was standing outside the gallery in a borrowed dress with nowhere to go and an ex-husband who'd proven he'd stop at nothing to control the narrative of their divorce. Then at least don't face him alone. Is your sister with you? Isabella looked through the gallery window. Valentina was laughing with a group of artists, completely unaware of the danger heading their way. She's inside. I don't want to drag her into this. Isabella, I'll figure it out. I'll call you back. She hung up before Elena could argue, her breath coming in short gasps. The Barcelona streets suddenly felt exposed, threatening. Any car could be Leonardo's. Any shadow could be. Isabella? Alejandro's voice came from behind her. You look terrified. What happened? She turned to find him standing in the gallery doorway, concern etched across his features. They'd spoken for all of 10 minutes, and now she was supposed to what? Explain that her vindictive ex-husband was hunting her across international borders?
Fine.
I just need to. The lie died on her lips when she saw his expression. He didn't believe her. And more than that, he looked like he actually cared. My ex-husband is flying here to confront me, she said flatly. I don't know how he found me, but he's dangerous when he doesn't get his way. I need to find somewhere safe to stay until I can figure out what to do. Alejandro didn't hesitate. Come with me. I have a studio apartment near Sagrada Familia. He won't know to look there, and you'll be safe while you make a plan. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. He pulled out his car keys. Valentina told me a little about what you're going through. Not the details, but enough to know you could use an ally right now. Let me be that ally. Isabella's instinct was to refuse, to handle this alone like she'd handled everything else. But the thought of being in a hotel room by herself when Leonardo arrived made her stomach twist with anxiety. Okay, she whispered. Thank you. Alejandro's studio was exactly what Isabella expected from a photographer. One large room with exposed brick walls, covered in prints and equipment, cameras on every surface. But it was also unexpectedly warm, filled with plants and books and the lingering scent of coffee. It's not much, but you're safe here, he said, locking the door behind them. I'll take the couch. You can have the bedroom. I can't take your bed, Isabella. He turned to face her, his expression serious. You're clearly terrified. You're shaking. Please, just accept the help without arguing. You can repay me by telling me about art restoration sometime. Deal? Despite everything, Isabella felt a smile tug at her lips.
Deal.
He made tea while she texted Elena the address, then called Valentina to explain. Her sister was predictably furious about Leonardo's pursuit, but relieved Isabella was somewhere safe. Stay with Alejandro as long as you need, Valentina said firmly. He's one of the good ones, I promise. And Isabella? Maybe it's time to stop running and start fighting back harder. After hanging up, Isabella sank onto Alejandro's worn sofa, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had carried her through the past week was finally crashing. You want to talk about it? Alejandro asked, handing her a mug of chamomile tea. Or would you rather I put on a movie and we pretend the world doesn't exist for a few hours? I don't even know where to start. Isabella wrapped her hands around the warm mug. 2 weeks ago, I thought I had a life. A husband, a home, a future. Now I'm hiding in a stranger's apartment while my ex-husband hunts me down and the news reports call me everything from unstable to vindictive. Are you unstable or vindictive? The question should have offended her, but his tone was genuinely curious, not judgmental. I'm angry, Isabella admitted. Furious, actually. He cheated on me, humiliated me publicly, tried to gaslight me into accepting scraps. And when I finally stood up for myself, suddenly I'm the villain. People who benefit from your silence will always paint your voice as violence, Alejandro said quietly. I learned that the hard way. Something in his tone made Isabella look up. What happened? He settled into the chair across from her, his expression distant. I was engaged once. To a woman from a very wealthy Madrid family. She loved the idea of a tortured artist boyfriend. Very romantic, very bohemian. But when it came time, material, specifically for eggs. Elena's voice was gentle but firm. Isabella, Sophia purchased frozen eggs 3 years ago. High-quality eggs from a donor who matched your physical description. The room spun. Why would she? Because she was planning to replace you. Not just divorce Leonardo and marry him off to someone else, but to have a surrogate carry a Rossi heir using Leonardo's sperm and donor eggs. She was going to create the grandchild she wanted without needing you at all. Isabella couldn't breathe. The betrayal was so calculated, so coldly efficient. Sophia had literally been planning to manufacture an heir while keeping Isabella trapped in a marriage that was destroying her. There's more, Elena continued. The clinic's records show she made inquiries about using those eggs 8 months ago, right around the time Camila became pregnant. The implication hit Isabella like a freight train. You think Camila's baby might not be naturally conceived, might be the product of Sophia's plan all along. We're trying to confirm, but if Camila was implanted with an embryo created from Leonardo's sperm and donor eggs, then this entire pregnancy is a fraud. And Isabella, Elena's voice dropped. If we can prove it, the Rossi family is finished. Isabella's mind reeled. This wasn't just infidelity. This was conspiracy, fraud, a level of manipulation so twisted she could barely comprehend it. "What do I do?" she whispered. "You stay hidden. Let Leonardo search. Every hour he spends hunting you is an hour my investigator spends gathering evidence. We're close, Isabella. So close to exposing everything." After Elena hung up, Isabella sat in stunned silence. Alejandro waited patiently, not pushing, just present. "My mother-in-law tried to replace me with a laboratory-created baby," Isabella finally said, her voice hollow. "For 3 years, she's been planning this. Maybe longer. While I was destroying my body trying to get pregnant, she was shopping for eggs in Switzerland." "That's insane." "That's the Rossi family." Isabella laughed, but it came out broken. "I thought Leonardo was weak, that he'd let his mother influence him into the affair. But this, they planned everything. Every piece. I was never supposed to succeed. I was just a placeholder until they could execute their perfect plan." Alejandro moved to sit beside her on the couch. "Look at me, Isabella."
She did.
His eyes were intense, fierce. "You are not a placeholder. You are not defective. You are not any of the things they tried to make you believe." He took her hand, his grip warm and solid. "You are a survivor of emotional abuse and manipulation. And you're still standing. Still fighting. That makes you stronger than all of them combined." Something in Isabella cracked open. Maybe it was the validation. Maybe it was the sheer exhaustion of carrying shame that had never been hers to carry. But suddenly she was crying, deep, wrenching sobs that she'd held back for years. And Alejandro didn't flinch. He just pulled her close and let her fall apart, his hand steady on her back, his presence an anchor in the storm. "I'm so tired of being strong," she whispered against his shoulder. "Then don't be. Not tonight. Tonight, just be human." They sat like that for a long time, Isabella's tears soaking his shirt, his quiet strength holding her together. When she finally pulled back, wiping her eyes, she found him watching her with an expression that made her heart skip. "Thank you," she said softly, "for seeing me, the real me, not the narrative everyone else has created." "I'm good at seeing what others miss," Alejandro said. "It's what makes me a decent photographer." "And Isabella? What I see when I look at you is someone extraordinary who's been told she's ordinary for so long she almost believed it." Their faces were close now. Isabella's breath caught as his hand came up to gently brush a tear from her cheek. "I should go to bed," she whispered, but she didn't move. "You should," he agreed. But he didn't move either. The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility and danger, and the intoxicating freedom of being seen. Finally, Isabella pulled away. "I'm still married."
Technically.
"And my life is a disaster. And you barely know me." "All true."
Alejandro smiled.
"But when you're ready, when your life is less of a disaster and you're free, I'd like to know you better. If you're interested." "I might be," Isabella admitted, feeling a flutter of something she'd thought was dead. Hope, maybe, or just the possibility of it. Her phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. *, I know you're in Barcelona. We need to talk.
Meet me tomorrow, 10 heures du matin, Parc de la Ciutadella.
Come alone or I release information that will destroy you. Isabella showed Alejandro the message, her hands shaking again. "You're not going alone," he said immediately. "He'll see you. Good. Let him. You said it yourself, he's dangerous, when he doesn't get his way. I'm not letting you face that alone." "Alejandro, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to." His jaw set with determination. "Besides, someone needs to document whatever happens. And I happen to be very good with a camera." Despite the fear, despite everything, Isabella smiled. For 6 years, she'd faced Leonardo's family alone. For the first time, she had someone in her corner who wasn't being paid to be there. Someone who chose to stand with her. "Okay," she said. "We face him together." She had no idea that tomorrow's confrontation would reveal a truth that would change everything. Not just about Leonardo, but about herself. What do you think Leonardo wants to say to Isabella? And are you loving Alejandro as much as I am? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you're on the edge of your seat right now, smash that subscribe button because part 6 is going to take this story to places you won't believe. Trust me, you need to be here for what happens next. The morning sun cast long shadows through Parque de la Ciudadela as Isabella and Alejandro arrived 15 minutes early. The park was already filling with joggers and tourists, children chasing pigeons near the fountain. It all looked so normal, so peaceful, a stark contrast to the dread coiling in Isabella's stomach. "We don't have to do this," Alejandro said quietly, his camera bag slung over his shoulder. "You can just ignore him. Stay hidden."
No.
"I'm done hiding." Isabella's voice was steadier than she felt. "Whatever he has to say, I'll face it. But thank you for being here." They positioned themselves near the agreed meeting spot, a bench overlooking the lake. Alejandro stayed several meters back, close enough to intervene if needed, but far enough to appear like just another photographer capturing the morning light. Leonardo arrived exactly at 10 o'clock. Isabella barely recognized him. Her husband, ex-husband, she corrected herself, looked like he hadn't slept in days. His usually immaculate suit was wrinkled, his hair unkempt, his eyes bloodshot and wild. "You came," he said, stopping a few feet away. His gaze flicked to Alejandro. "I sat alone, and I decided I'd rather have a witness." "What do you want, Leonardo?" He flinched at her cold tone. For a moment, something like regret flickered across his face. Then it hardened into anger. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The damage you've caused?" I've caused? Isabella's voice rose. "I'm not the one who committed adultery. I'm not the one whose mother orchestrated a fraud. Shut up." Leonardo moved closer, his voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "You need to shut up right now and listen to me very carefully. Camila lost the baby last night." The words hit Isabella like a physical blow. "What?" She miscarried. "At 3 o'clock this morning. My son is dead." His eyes were red-rimmed, whether from grief or rage. Isabella couldn't tell. "And it's your fault. Your harassment, your legal games, the stress you put on her. I never contacted Camila. I never harassed anyone. You hired investigators to dig through her past. You leaked information to the press. You made her life hell, and now my child is dead because of you." Leonardo's hands were shaking. "So here's what's going to happen, Isabella. You're going to drop the divorce proceedings. You're going to accept the settlement my lawyers offered. And you're going to release a public statement apologizing for the pain you've caused." Isabella stared at him in disbelief. "Are you insane? Even if I believed Camila actually miscarried, I have the hospital records right here." Leonardo pulled out his phone, shoved it toward her. "Look at them. Look at what you did." The documents looked official. Camila Duarte, admitted at 2:47 a.m., fetal heartbeat absent, miscarriage confirmed at 3:15 a.m. Isabella's hands trembled as she scrolled through the reports. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said quietly. "Truly I am. But Leonardo, I didn't cause this. And I'm not dropping the divorce." "Then you leave me no choice." Leonardo's expression turned cold. "I was hoping to do this quietly, to spare you the humiliation. But you forced my hand." He pulled out an envelope, handed it to her. Inside were photographs. Isabella's breath caught as she looked through them. Pictures of her at her lowest moments during the fertility treatments, crying in the bathroom, popping pills, looking gaunt and desperate. But these had been manipulated, cropped, taken out of context to suggest something far darker. "What is this?" she whispered. "Evidence of your mental instability. Your addiction to fertility medications. Your increasingly erratic behavior." Leonardo's voice was clinical now, detached. "I also have statements from my family, from our friends, from your own doctors describing your depression, your obsessive behavior, your inability to accept reality. These are lies. Are they? You were depressed. You did take medication. You were obsessed with getting pregnant. He leaned closer. I can paint a very convincing picture, Isabella. A mentally unstable woman who became vindictive when her husband finally left her. A woman whose harassment campaign led to the death of an unborn child. How do you think the courts will view you then? Isabella felt the ground shift beneath her feet. You wouldn't. Elena said, Your lawyer is excellent, I'll give you that. But my family has resources she can't match. Judges who owe us favors. Media outlets we control. We can destroy your reputation so thoroughly you'll never work again. Never have a normal life again. His voice softened, became almost gentle. Or you can be reasonable. Take the settlement. Move on quietly. I'll even sweeten the offer. Add another villa. Increase the monthly allowance. You can live comfortably, Isabella. Just let this go. And if I don't? Leonardo's mask slipped, revealing something ugly underneath. Then I'll make sure everyone knows what you really are. A barren, unstable woman who couldn't handle being replaced. I'll sue you for emotional damages. For the loss of my child. I'll take everything from you, including your dignity. Isabella's vision tunneled. This was it, the trap closing around her. She could fight and risk losing everything, or she could surrender and live the rest of her life as Leonardo Rossi's discarded, silenced ex-wife. I need time to think, she managed. You have 24 hours. After that, I file everything. Leonardo turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Isabella? Tell your photographer friend to be careful. My investigators have been very thorough, including looking into everyone you've been associating with since you fled to Barcelona. The threat was clear. Involve Alejandro further, and he'd become a target too. After Leonardo walked away, Isabella stood frozen, the envelope clutched in her shaking hands.
Alejandro approached cautiously.
Did you get it? She asked, her voice hollow. On camera? Every word. His expression was grim. Isabella, he's bluffing. He has to be. What if he's not? She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. What if I fight and lose everything? What if he really can turn everyone against me? I'd have nothing. No home, no money, no reputation. I'd be exactly what they always said I was, worthless. You are not worthless. You don't know that. The words burst out of her, raw and desperate. You barely know me, Alejandro. You see what you want to see, some strong woman rising from the ashes. But what if I'm just broken? What if they broke me and there's nothing left to salvage? Isabella, I think you should go. She stepped back, putting distance between them. This is my mess. My battle. I can't drag you into it. Leonardo was right. They'll destroy anyone connected to me. You have a career, a life. I won't let them take that from you too. I'm not afraid of them. Well, I am. The admission tore from her throat.
I'm terrified. Okay.
I'm so scared I can barely breathe. And I can't be responsible for what happens to you if you stay involved. Alejandro's jaw tightened. So you're pushing me away. Just like that. I'm protecting you. No, you're doing exactly what they want. Isolating yourself. Cutting off your support system. He moved closer, his eyes intense. Isabella, don't let them win like this. Don't let fear. It's not your decision. Her voice cracked. Please, Alejandro. Just go. Forget you met me. Forget all of this. For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then he nodded slowly. Okay, if that's what you want. But Isabella? When you realize you don't have to do this alone, when you remember that accepting help isn't weakness, I'll still be here. My offer stands. He walked away, and Isabella watched him go, feeling like she was severing a lifeline. But what choice did she have? Leonardo would destroy him. Would destroy anyone who stood with her. Better to face this alone than drag others down with her. Isabella walked for hours, her mind spinning. She ended up at the beach, sitting on the sand as the Mediterranean stretched endlessly before her. Her phone buzzed repeatedly, Valentina calling, Elena calling, messages piling up. She ignored them all. The truth was Leonardo had won. Not because his threats were necessarily legitimate, but because he'd found her breaking point. He knew she couldn't risk losing everything, couldn't risk dragging others down with her. And God help her, part of her was so tired of fighting. Maybe accepting the settlement was the smart choice. She'd have money, security, freedom from the Rossi family. She could disappear, start over somewhere new, try to rebuild a life. A life alone. A life in hiding. A life as the woman who'd lost everything and accepted defeat. Is that who you want to be? Nana Rosa's voice echoed in her memory. Moretti women don't beg for scraps from men's tables. We build our own feasts. But Nana Rosa had never faced an enemy like the Rossi family. Had never been this broken, this scared, this alone. Isabella's phone rang again. This time it was Elena, and something made Isabella answer. Where are you? Elena's voice was sharp with worry. Valentina said you met with Leonardo. Tell me you didn't agree to anything. He has evidence. Photos, statements, hospital records showing Camila miscarried. He's threatening to destroy me if I don't accept the settlement. Isabella, listen to me very carefully. The miscarriage is real. Our investigator confirmed it. But that doesn't mean you caused it. And those photos he showed you? Classic manipulation. Out of context images designed to make you look unstable. What if a judge believes him? What if they don't? Isabella, we're so close to proving fraud. The Swiss clinic confirmed Sophia purchased eggs. We have phone records showing communication between Sophia and Camila going back 9 months. We're building an airtight case, but I need you to hold on.
Can you do that?
Isabella watched the waves crash against the shore, each one retreating, then returning stronger. I pushed Alejandro away, she said quietly. I told him to leave me alone, to protect him from Leonardo.
Elena sighed.
And how did that make you feel? Like I lost the only good thing that's happened to me in years. Then maybe that's your answer. Maybe fighting isn't about winning or losing. Maybe it's about refusing to let them take everything from you. Your dignity, your truth, your connections. Leonardo wants you isolated and afraid. Are you going to give him that? Isabella thought of Alejandro's words. You don't have to do this alone. She thought of Nana Rosa's letter. Use it to remember who you were before someone else told you who to be. She thought of the girl she'd been 7 years ago, walking through galleries with stars in her eyes, believing broken things could be beautiful again. What do I do? She whispered. You fight. Not because you're sure you'll win, but because the alternative is accepting a life that isn't yours. And Isabella? You call Alejandro and apologize for pushing him away. Because that man stood with you when he didn't have to. That's rare. Don't throw it away, because you're scared. After hanging up, Isabella sat with Elena's words. The sun was setting now, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Beautiful and fleeting and utterly indifferent to human suffering. She pulled up Alejandro's number, her thumb hovering over the call button. What if he didn't answer? What if she'd ruined the fragile connection between them? What if she was making another mistake in a life full of them? But what if she wasn't? Isabella pressed call. It rang once.
Twice.
3 times. She was about to hang up when his voice came through. Isabella. I'm sorry, she said, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry. I was scared and I pushed you away and where are you?
The beach.
Near Barceloneta. Stay there. I'm coming. Alejandro, I don't expect you to. I know you don't. But I'm coming anyway. Because that's what people do when they care about each other. They show up, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. 20 minutes later, Isabella saw him walking across the sand toward her, his camera bag still over his shoulder. When he reached her, he sat down beside her without a word, just his presence solid and steady. "I'm a mess," Isabella said quietly. "I know. I don't know if I can win this fight. I know.
I'm terrified.
I know." He took her hand, laced his fingers through hers. "But you're not alone. Not anymore. So whatever happens next, we face it together. Okay." Isabella leaned her head against his shoulder, feeling something in her chest unclench. "Okay." Her phone buzzed. A message from Leonardo. "Hours left. Choose wisely." But for the first time since this nightmare began, Isabella didn't feel the crushing weight of isolation. She had an ally, maybe more than that. And sometimes that made all the difference. Have you ever had someone show up for you when you needed them most? Someone who chose to stand with you even when it was hard? Share your story in the comments. I love hearing about the people who've been your rocks. And if this story is gripping you, hit that subscribe button. Isabella didn't sleep that night. She sat in Alejandro's studio surrounded by printouts of evidence, legal documents, and the photographs Leonardo had tried to use against her. Alejandro worked beside her in silence, occasionally bringing coffee, his quiet presence an anchor. At 3 a.m, Isabella's phone rang.
Helena.
"I'm sending you something," the lawyer said without preamble. "My investigator just cracked it. Everything we needed." Isabella's laptop pinged with an incoming email. She opened the attachment, and her breath caught. Bank transfers.
Dozens of them.
From Sofia Rossi to Camila Duarte, dating back 11 months. But it wasn't just the money. It was the accompanying emails, carelessly archived in a server the investigator had accessed. Isabella read aloud, her voice shaking. Asterisk, the girl must believe Leonardo chose her organically. Make him feel like the pursuer. Isabella's latest treatment fails next month. That's your opening. Be sympathetic, available. Everything she isn't. Asterisk, keep reading, Elena urged. Isabella scrolled down, finding an email dated 6 months ago. Asterisk, the embryo implantation is scheduled for next week. The clinic assures me the procedure is routine. Once you're confirmed pregnant, we move to phase 2. Leonardo will have his heir, and Isabella will have no choice but to accept reality. Asterisk, oh my God, Isabella whispered. Camila was never naturally pregnant. It was all planned, orchestrated, fraud. Elena's voice was fierce with triumph. Sophia paid for everything. The eggs, the IVF, even Camila's acting lessons. Yes, there's a receipt for that too. This wasn't an affair, Isabella. This was a calculated replacement scheme. And we can prove every piece of it. Alejandro leaned over Isabella's shoulder, reading the documents. This is insane. How did they think they'd get away with it? Because they've gotten away with everything else, Isabella said quietly. The pieces were falling into place now. The miscarriage, Elena, was that real or staged?
Real.
But here's the thing. The embryo was already failing. Camila's medical records from the private hospital show abnormalities detected 2 weeks ago. They knew she was likely to miscarry, so they used it. Blame you, make you the villain, force you into surrender. Isabella stood, pacing the small studio. Her fear was transforming into something sharper, clearer. Rage.
Purpose.
They used my pain, she said, her voice strengthening. They weaponized my desperate desire for a child and turned it into a reason to destroy me. And they thought, what? That I'd just accept it? Just disappear? Most people would, Elena said. Most people don't have the strength to fight back against this level of manipulation. But Isabella, you're not most people. Are you? Isabella looked at Alejandro, who was watching her with an expression of fierce pride. Then she looked at the evidence spread across the desk, proof of every lie, every manipulation, every cruel calculation. No, she said firmly. I'm not.
Good.
Because tomorrow at noon, I'm holding a press conference. I'm releasing everything, the bank transfers, the emails, the fertility fraud. The Rossi family will be exposed for exactly what they are. But Isabella, I need your permission. Once we do this, there's no going back. They'll come at you with everything they have left. Isabella thought of the girl she'd been a week ago, small, scared, apologizing for her existence. She thought of 6 years spent shrinking herself to fit into a family that had been planning her disposal from the start. Then she thought of Nana Rosa, of Valentina, of Alejandro sitting beside her at 3 in the morning, choosing to stand with her when he could have walked away. Do it, Isabella said. Release everything. Let the world see who they really are. The press conference happened at noon in a hotel ballroom packed with journalists. Elena stood at the podium, methodical and devastating, laying out the evidence piece by piece. Isabella watched from a private room upstairs, Alejandro. Beside her, Valentina on her other side. Her sister had arrived that morning, refusing to be anywhere else. As Elena detailed the conspiracy, Isabella's phone began exploding with notifications. Social media was erupting. The story was going viral in real time. #JusticeForIsabella started trending. Women began sharing their own stories of being blamed for infertility, of being discarded when they couldn't produce children, of being gaslighted by partners and families. Isabella's eyes filled with tears as she read message after message. You're so brave. Thank you for fighting. You saved me from accepting less than I deserve. Look, Valentina said, pointing to the television. The news was showing footage from outside Rossi International headquarters. Protesters had gathered, demanding accountability. Shareholders were calling for emergency meetings. Leonardo's face flashed across the screen, pale, shocked, trapped by reporters demanding comment. Ms. Rossi, did you know about your mother's scheme? Did you conspire to defraud your wife? Is it true the baby wasn't naturally conceived?
He had no answers.
For the first time in his privileged life, Leonardo Rossi had no control over the narrative. Isabella's phone rang. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Isabella. Sofia Rossi's voice was cold, clipped. This is a mistake. You think you've won, but you've only made things worse for yourself. We can still destroy you. No, you can't. Isabella's voice was steady, certain. Because I'm not afraid of you anymore. You took 6 years of my life, convinced me I was broken, made me hate myself. But you know what you couldn't take? My truth. And now everyone knows it. You'll regret. The only thing I regret is not fighting back sooner. Goodbye, Sophia. I hope your lawyers are as good as you think they are. You're going to need them. Isabella hung up, her hands trembling but her heart steady. Alejandro pulled her close. How do you feel? Terrified. Exhilarated. Free. She looked up at him. Is it possible to feel all of those things at once? I think that's what freedom feels like when you've been caged for too long. His hand cupped her face gently. You did it, Isabella. You stood up to them. We did it, she corrected. I couldn't have done this alone. Their faces were close now, and this time, Isabella didn't pull away. When Alejandro kissed her, it felt like coming home and stepping into the unknown all at once, gentle and fierce and filled with promise. When they broke apart, Valentina was grinning. About damn time. Isabella laughed, really laughed for the first time in longer than she could remember. Her phone buzzed. Elena, they're offering a settlement. Full disclosure of assets, 50% of everything, public apology from Leonardo and Sofia. They want this over before it destroys them completely. Your call. ****. Isabella looked at the message, then at the people surrounding her. Her sister. This man who'd chosen to stand with her. The life she was finally brave enough to reclaim. She typed her response. I'll consider it. But on my terms, not theirs. They don't get to control this anymore. ****, the war wasn't over. But for the first time, Isabella knew she was going to win. Not because she was stronger than them, but because she'd finally remembered she was worth fighting for. What would your terms be if you were Isabella? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you're cheering for Isabella right now, make sure you're subscribed because what happened next going to bring this story home in the most satisfying way possible. You've come this far. Don't miss the ending. The settlement negotiations took place in a neutral conference room overlooking Barcelona's skyline. Isabella sat between Elena and Valentina, facing Leonardo, Sofia, and a team of 4 Rossi lawyers. Camilla was notably absent. Sofia Rossi looked like she'd aged 10 years in 3 days. The woman who'd always been so perfectly composed now had dark circles under her eyes and a tremor in her hands she couldn't quite hide. Leonardo wouldn't meet Isabella's gaze. The head Rossi attorney, a severe man named Castellano, slid a document across the table. Our clients are prepared to offer a substantial settlement in exchange for your silence regarding certain allegations. Elena didn't even look at the document. My client isn't interested in silence. She's interested in justice. Mrs. Moretti has already caused irreparable damage to the Rossi reputation, Castellano continued. Further public disclosure serves no purpose except vindictive. Further public disclosure serves the truth, Isabella interrupted, her voice clear and strong. Which is something your clients have avoided for quite some time. Sofia's eyes flashed. You ungrateful little. Careful, Elena warned. Everything said in this room is being recorded. The Rossi lawyer raised a hand to silence Sofia. What exactly do you want, Mrs. Moretti? Isabella leaned forward. For 6 years, she'd made herself small in rooms like this. Not anymore. I want a full, public apology from both Leonardo and Sofia, admitting to the conspiracy to defraud me. I want 60% of all marital assets, including Leonardo's shares in Rossi International. I want the villa in Tuscany, the penthouse in Milano, and the cottage, which was always mine anyway. She paused. And I want Camila Duarte prosecuted for fraud. Absolutely not, Castellano said immediately. Ms. Duarte was as much a victim in this. Ms. Duarte was paid 300,000 euros over 11 months to seduce a married man and carry an implanted embryo while pretending it was naturally conceived, Elena said coolly. We have her bank records, her emails, even her script, literally, a script your client provided for how to manipulate Leonardo. She's not a victim. She's a co-conspirator. Leonardo's head snapped up. What script? I never. He turned to his mother, something dawning in his eyes. Mother, what did you do? Sofia's face was stone. What was necessary? Isabella was never going to give you an heir. I found a solution. You hired someone to seduce me? To fake a pregnancy? Leonardo's voice rose. I thought Camila actually wanted. He stopped, the reality crashing over him. It was all a lie. Everything. It was a business arrangement, Sofia said coldly, which would have worked perfectly if your weak, pathetic wife hadn't decided to grow a spine. The slap came from an unexpected source, Leonardo himself, his hand cracking across his mother's face with enough force to snap her head sideways. The room went silent. I am many things, Leonardo said quietly, his voice shaking. I'm a cheater, a coward, a man who let his family destroy the woman who loved him. But I never thought you would go this far. He turned to Isabella, and she saw genuine devastation in his eyes. You were right. About everything. I let them use me. Let them convince me you were the problem when the problem was us. This family. This obsession with legacy and bloodlines and control. He looked at the lawyers. Give her everything she's asking for. All of it. I'll sign whatever she wants. Leonardo, don't be ridiculous, Sofia started. Shut up, mother. He'd never spoken to her like that before. None of them had. You destroyed my marriage. You hired a woman to manipulate me, to carry a child that was created in a laboratory, and you did it all while making Isabella feel like she was defective, like she was the failure. His voice cracked. When the only failures in this room are you and me. Sofia stood abruptly. If you do this, if you give her what she wants, You'll have nothing left. The company, the family assets. Good. Maybe with nothing left, I can finally figure out who I am without your poison in my head. Leonardo looked at Isabella. I know sorry isn't enough. I know I can never undo the damage I caused. But for what it's worth, I'm sorry. And I hope wherever you go, whatever you do next, you find everything you deserve. Everything I was too weak to give you. Isabella felt tears prick her eyes, but not from sadness. From closure. From the strange relief of hearing him finally take responsibility. I hope you find yourself too, Leonardo, she said quietly. I really do. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized on a Tuesday. Isabella stood on the steps of the Barcelona courthouse, Elena beside her, as cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions. How does it feel to be free, Mrs. Moretti? What will you do with your settlement? Is it true you're writing a book about your experience? Elena handled the questions with professional efficiency, while Isabella simply smiled. She was free. Actually, legally, completely free. And, incredibly, impossibly wealthy. The settlement had given her everything she'd asked for and more. Leonardo had insisted she take 70% of his assets, claiming it was the least he owed her. Rossi International's stock value had plummeted after the scandal, but Isabella's shares were still worth millions. Sofia Rossi was facing fraud charges. Camila Duarte had fled to Brazil, but Interpol was involved now. Leonardo had stepped down from the company, liquidating most of his remaining assets and donating them to infertility support charities. The Rossi empire was crumbling, and Isabella felt no guilt about it. Some things deserved to crumble. Ready. Alejandro appeared at her elbow, his camera capturing the moment. Over the past 3 months, he'd barely left her side. Their relationship had blossomed slowly, carefully, 2 wounded people learning to trust again. Ready, Isabella confirmed. They'd made plans. Beautiful, terrifying plans. Isabella was moving to Madrid with Alejandro. She'd enrolled in a restoration program to finish her degree. She'd started writing, not a book about her divorce, but essays about reclaiming identity after trauma. A publisher was interested. But most importantly, she'd started healing. 4 years later, Madrid, Isabella stood in her art studio, carefully applying gold leaf to a damaged 16th century frame. The late afternoon sun streamed through the windows, illuminating the workspace she'd built from nothing. Her restoration business had grown beyond anything she'd imagined. Museums across Europe sought her expertise. She'd published 2 books. She'd built a life that was entirely, beautifully hers.
Mama.
A small voice called from the doorway. Isabella turned to find her daughter, 3 years old, with dark curls and Alejandro's eyes, running toward her on unsteady legs. Careful, mi amor. Alejandro appeared behind their daughter, laughing. Don't knock over Mama's work. Isabella scooped up little Rosa, her heart swelling. After the divorce, after the healing, after she'd rebuilt herself completely, her body had finally been ready. The pregnancy had been unexpected, natural, and utterly joyous. One daughter had become twins when the ultrasound revealed a surprise. Then, 2 years later, another set of twins, boys this time. 4 children. The family she'd been told she could never have, now running through her home, filling it with chaos and laughter and sticky fingerprints. How was your day? Alejandro asked, kissing her temple. Perfect. I finished the commission for the Prado. And I got an interesting call. A corporate firm wants to hire me to restore some pieces for their headquarters. Very lucrative. Are you going to take it? Maybe. They're sending someone to meet with me next week. Isabella set Rosa down to chase after her siblings. But enough about work. How are our little tornadoes? Currently destroying the kitchen. I attempted to teach them to make empanadas.
Alejandro grinned ruefully.
There's flour everywhere. This was life now. Messy, imperfect, overflowing with love. Isabella had never been happier. 6 months later, the corporate headquarters were impressive, a gleaming tower in Madrid's financial district. Isabella arrived for her consultation meeting with the CEO, her portfolio in hand. The receptionist led her to the top floor. "Mr. Moretti will see you now." Isabella froze. "I'm sorry, did you say Moretti?" "Yes, ma'am. Mr. Alessandro Moretti, our CEO." The name meant nothing to her, but something prickled at the back of Isabella's neck as she entered the corner office. The man who stood to greet her was perhaps 26, tall and striking, with familiar cheekbones and eyes that... Isabella's portfolio slipped from her hands. "Hello, Mother," the young man said softly. "I've waited a long time to meet you." Her mind reeled. This was impossible. She didn't have... "I think you should sit down," he said gently. "This is going to be a lot to process." In a daze, Isabella sank into a chair. "I don't understand. My name is Alessandro. I'm 26 years old. And I'm your son." "That's impossible. The fertility clinic in Rome. 12 years ago, when you underwent IVF." Alessandro pulled out a folder, slid it across the desk. "Several of your embryos were viable. You and Leonardo decided not to implant them, so they were frozen. Do you remember?" Isabella's hands trembled. She did remember, vaguely. It had been during year 4 of trying, when hope was already dying. When Leonardo signed the divorce settlement, part of the agreement involved disposing of biological materials, including those embryos. But there was an administrative error. The embryos weren't destroyed. They were acquired. Acquired by whom? Alessandro's smile was sad. By a woman who desperately wanted a child but couldn't carry one herself. A woman with enough money to pay off the right people, to arrange for a surrogate, to create a family outside of legal channels. Understanding crashed over Isabella. "Sophia. My grandmother raised me to be the Rossi heir she always wanted. She told me my mother had abandoned me, that you were mentally unstable and couldn't be trusted. I believed her for years." His voice hardened. "Until I turned 18 and hired investigators to find the truth. That's when I learned everything. The conspiracy, the fraud, what she did to you." Isabella couldn't breathe. "You're my son. Biologically yours and Leonardo's, yes. Along with my siblings." He pressed a button on his desk and a door opened. 3 more young people entered. 2 women and a man, all in their mid-20s, all with variations of Isabella's features and Leonardo's coloring. "We're quadruplets," Alessandro said. "Sophia had all 4 embryos implanted in different surrogates. We were raised separately until we were teenagers, then brought together to be groomed as Rossi heirs. A dynasty built on stolen genetics and lies." One of the young women stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "She told us you didn't want us, that you'd chosen your freedom over being our mother. We hated you for years, until we learned the truth." Isabella's world tilted on its axis. She had 4 adult children she'd never known existed. Children created from her stolen embryos, raised by the woman who'd tried to destroy her. "Where is Sophia now?" Isabella managed to ask. "Prison. But even from there, she tried to maintain control over us, over the company." Alessandro's expression hardened. "So we took it from her. All 4 of us united, bought out the other shareholders, and restructured everything. Rossi International is now Moretti Enterprises. And we run it according to our values, not hers." The other son spoke up, his voice gentle. "We didn't reach out to you sooner, because we weren't sure. We didn't know if you'd want anything to do with children who reminded you of what was stolen from you." Isabella stood on shaking legs, approaching. "These strangers who were her children, want anything to do with you? I spent 6 years believing I was broken because I couldn't have children. And all that time, 4 of you existed in the world, and I didn't even know." She reached out, touched Alessandro's face with trembling fingers. "You're real. You're mine. And I have missed you every day, without even knowing it. The dam broke. All four of her children surrounded her, and they clung to each other, a family separated by cruelty, reunited by truth. 1 week later, Leonardo Rossi sat in the waiting room of Moretti Enterprises, his worn suit a far cry from the designer clothing he'd once worn. The past 5 years had not been kind to him. Broke, humiliated, struggling to find work, this job interview was his last hope. He'd applied under his mother's maiden name, hoping his connection to the Rossi scandal wouldn't immediately disqualify him. "Mr. Leone?" The receptionist smiled. "They're ready for you now. Top floor." Leonardo's hands shook as he rode the elevator. He needed this job. Needed a chance to rebuild something from the ruins of his life. The elevator doors opened to reveal a conference room. And sitting around the table, Leonardo's knees buckled. 4 faces stared back at him. Faces he'd seen in his dreams and nightmares for years. The embryos he'd created with Isabella, the children Sofia had stolen and raised in secret. "Hello, Father," Alessandro said, his voice cold. "We've been waiting for you." Isabella stepped out from an adjoining office, and Leonardo felt what remained of his composure shatter. "Isabella," he breathed. "I didn't know the job posting was designed specifically for you," she said calmly. "We wanted you here. The children and I had some things we needed to say." Leonardo looked at the 4 young people who were his biological children but strangers in every way that mattered. "I'm so sorry. For everything. I didn't know Mother had done this, I swear." "We know," one of the daughters said. "We've read everything. The court documents, the evidence. You were weak, not evil. There's a difference." "We're not here for revenge," the other son added. "We're here to offer you something you never offered our mother. A choice." Alessandro stood, walked to his father. "You can have a job here. Entry level, in our restoration division that Mother," he glanced at Isabella with warmth, "our real mother runs. You'll work hard, prove yourself, and maybe, eventually, you can earn the right to be part of this family you helped create. Or," the second daughter continued, "you can leave. Walk away, and we'll provide a small stipend to help you get on your feet.
No strings, no obligations.
But also no relationship with us." Leonardo looked at Isabella, tears streaming down his face. "What do you think I should do?" Isabella considered the man who'd broken her heart, who'd betrayed her, who'd also been a victim of Sofia's machinations in his own way. "I think," she said slowly, "that everyone deserves a chance at redemption. Whether you take it or waste it, that's up to you." Leonardo fell to his knees. "I don't deserve this. Any of this." "No," Alessandro agreed. "You don't. But our mother taught us something about grace, about giving people chances to be better than they were. So here's yours. What do you do with it?" Leonardo looked up at these 4 extraordinary young people, then at Isabella, strong, successful, surrounded by the family she'd built, both biological and chosen. "I want to try," he whispered. "I want to be better. To earn my place here, if you'll let me." "Then get up," Isabella said firmly. "And get to work. You've wasted enough of your life on your knees." That evening, Isabella returned home to find Alejandro and their 4 young children waiting. Rosa and her twin sister Lucia were covered in paint. The boys, Marco and David, were wrestling in the living room. Asterisk, asterisk. "How did it go?" Alejandro asked, pulling her close. "I have quadruplet adult children I never knew existed, and my ex-husband is now working in my restoration department," Isabella said. "So, Tuesday."
Alejandro laughed.
"Want me to add them to the family calendar? I assume they'll be at Sunday dinner?" Isabella smiled, leaning into his embrace. Her life had become wonderfully, impossibly complicated. 8 children, 4 adults who'd found their way back to her, 4 young ones who were her daily joy. A thriving business. A partner who loved her unconditionally. And most importantly, peace. The kind that came from surviving hell and choosing to build heaven on the other side. "Yes," she said. "Add them to the calendar. All of them. Even Leonardo, if he sticks around." "You're remarkable, you know that?" Alejandro kissed her forehead.
No.
I'm just a woman who refused to let cruelty have the last word. Isabella watched her young children play, thought of her older children rebuilding an empire on principles instead of poison. I'm a woman who learned that broken things can be made beautiful again. She'd told Leonardo that once, lifetimes ago. Now she'd proven it. The best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building a life so beautiful that the people who try to destroy you become irrelevant. What do you think of Isabella's journey? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you've been with us for this whole ride, make sure you're subscribed because what happens next wraps everything up with the most beautiful bow. You've got to see how this ends. 2 years later, the villa in Tuscany had been transformed. Where once it had been a sterile showcase of Rossi wealth, Isabella had turned it into a home filled with warmth, color, and life. The gardens bloomed year-round under Valentina's enthusiastic but chaotic care. The walls displayed photographs, Alejandro's work, mixed with the children's drawings. Today, the villa was filled to bursting. Isabella stood in the kitchen, flour dusting her apron as she rolled pasta dough alongside her daughter-in-law, Chiara, Alessandro's wife of 6 months. The young woman had brought even more light into Alessandro's life, and watching them together reminded Isabella that love could be simple when it was real. Mama Isabella, the twins are trying to eat the uncooked pasta again. Sophia, one of her adult daughters, appeared in the doorway, carrying a squirming Marco under one arm. That's my cue. Isabella wiped her hands, grinning. How are you so good at wrangling 26-year-old executives but helpless with a 5-year-old? Because executives respond to logic. 5-year-olds are tiny chaos agents. Sophia handed over Marco with relief. Also, Nonno Leonardo is here. He brought flowers. Isabella's smile softened. Let him in. Leonardo had been working in her restoration department for 2 years now. He'd started at the bottom, learning the craft with humility that would have shocked his former self. He'd proven himself skilled, dedicated, and genuinely committed to being better. More importantly, he'd built careful, tentative relationships with the quadruplets. He'd never tried to claim the title of father. That honor belonged to the man who'd raised them in their hearts, even if Sophia had stolen them. But he'd earned the title of family. He appeared in the kitchen doorway, silver-haired now, holding a bouquet of wildflowers. For the chef, he said quietly, offering them to Isabella. You know Alejandro's the one cooking the main course, right? Isabella teased, accepting the flowers. Then for the woman who taught me that redemption is possible, even when you don't deserve it. Leonardo's eyes were warm but respectful. He'd learned where the boundaries were. Go help set the table, Isabella instructed. And keep your grandson from eating raw pasta. Watching Leonardo chase after Marco, laughing as the little boy shrieked with delight, Isabella felt a strange peace. She'd never forget what he'd done. But she'd learned that forgiveness wasn't about forgetting. It was about refusing to let the past poison your future. Dinner was beautiful chaos. 23 people crammed around tables they'd pushed together. Isabella and Alejandro's 8 children, their spouses and partners, Valentina and her girlfriend, Elena the lawyer, who'd become a dear friend, and even Camila. Yes, Camila. The woman who'd once been the instrument of Isabella's destruction had served 18 months in prison for fraud. When she'd been released, broken and remorseful, Isabella had done something that shocked everyone. She'd offered her a job. You're good at languages and international relations, Isabella had said. Use those skills for something real instead of manipulation. Camila now ran the international division of Moretti Enterprises, and she'd proven herself trustworthy. More than that, she'd become an unexpected ally in helping young women escape toxic relationships. People can change, Isabella had told her children when they'd questioned the decision, but only if someone gives them the chance and the reason. Now, Camila sat at the far end of the table, laughing at something Valentina said, looking lighter than Isabella had ever seen her. Speech. Alessandro called out, raising his wine glass. Mama Isabella, You have to make a speech." The table erupted in agreement, everyone turning to look at her expectantly. Isabella stood, her heart full to bursting. Alejandro squeezed her hand encouragingly. 7 years ago, she began, her voice steady, I sat in a restaurant and watched my life fall apart. I was told I was worthless because I couldn't have children. I was mocked for my pain. I was discarded like I'd never mattered at all. The table had gone quiet, everyone listening. If someone had told me then that I'd end up here, with 8 extraordinary children, a man who loves me unconditionally, a business I built from nothing, and a family that includes even the people who once hurt me, I would never have believed them. She looked around the table, meeting each person's eyes. But here's what I learned. The worst moments of your life don't define you. How you rise from them does. I learned that infertility doesn't make you less of a woman. That asking for help isn't weakness. That the people who see your value will show up, and the ones who don't never deserved you anyway. She looked at Leonardo, who had tears streaming down his face. I learned that hurt people, but healed people can heal people. And most importantly, Isabella continued, her voice breaking with emotion, I learned that the family you create is just as valuable as the family you're born into. Some of you share my DNA. Some of you married into this chaos. Some of you were brought here by friendship or redemption or pure chance. But all of you are mine, and I am yours. She raised her glass. To broken things made beautiful. To second chances. To building feasts instead of accepting scraps. And to the truth that no matter how dark the night gets, morning always comes. To morning, the table echoed, glasses clinking. As everyone returned to their meals and conversations, Alejandro pulled Isabella close. Have I told you today that you're magnificent? He whispered against her hair. Only 3 times. You're slacking. Isabella smiled up at him. Let me remedy that. He kissed her softly, and even after 6 years together, Isabella still felt that spark. The difference between real love and the counterfeit she'd settled for before was night and day. Little Rosa tugged on Isabella's sleeve. Mama, tell the story again. Which story, mi amor? The one about the queen who everyone said was broken, but she was actually just waiting for her real family to find her. Isabella's eyes misted. She'd created a fairy tale version of her journey for the younger children, turning her pain into a story of hope. Once upon a time, she began, settling Rosa on her lap as the other young children gathered around, there was a queen who lived in a castle made of lies. As she told the story, her story, Isabella caught Alessandro's eye across the children's heads. He was documenting everything with his camera, as always, capturing these moments for the archive of their impossible, beautiful life. In the background, her adult children argued about business strategies. Leonardo taught Marco a card trick. Valentina and Camila debated politics. Elena checked her phone, probably working even during family dinner. This was her empire. Not built on money or legacy or bloodlines. Built on love. On second chances. On the radical choice to meet cruelty with grace and betrayal with boundaries. Later that night, after everyone had left and the children were asleep, Isabella stood in the villa's garden under a blanket of stars. The same stars that had witnessed her devastation now watched her peace. Alejandro joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. What are you thinking about? He asked. How far I've come. How that woman in the restaurant 7 years ago would never recognize who I am now. Isabella leaned back into his embrace. And how grateful I am that she found the strength to fight. Not just fight.
To survive. To thrive.
To build something extraordinary from the ashes. Alejandro turned her to face him. Isabella Moretti, you are the strongest person I know. And I'm honored every single day that you chose to let me walk beside you. Alejandro Cruz, you saved my life. You saw me when I was invisible. You stood with me when you could have walked away. You loved me when I'd forgotten how to love myself. She touched his face gently. I'm the one who's honored. He kissed her then, deep and slow and full of promise, the promise of more tomorrows, more laughter, more beautiful chaos. When they finally broke apart, Isabella looked up at the stars and sent a silent thank you to Nana Rosa, whose wisdom and foresight had given her the foundation to rebuild. Asterisk, we don't break. Tesoro. We rebuild. Asterisk, and rebuild she had.
Spectacularly.
Triumphantly. Into something more beautiful than what had been destroyed. Her phone buzzed with a text from Alessandro. Asterisk, thank you for giving us a chance to know you. You're the mother we always needed. The family we always deserved. We love you. Asterisk, Isabella smiled, tears of joy streaming down her face. 7 years ago, Camila had mocked her, calling her a barren queen with no crown. But Camila had been wrong. Isabella had been a queen all along. She just needed to remember that her crown wasn't given by others. It was forged through fire, polished by tears, and earned through the radical act of refusing to stay broken. And her kingdom? It wasn't made of gold or property or corporate empires. It was made of love. Of the 8 children who called her mama. Of the man who chose her every single day. Of the family she'd built from nothing and everything all at once. Looking out over the Tuscan hills she now owned, truly owned, not as Leonardo's wife but as herself, Isabella felt something she'd searched for desperately during those dark years. Completeness. Wholeness. Home. Not because a man gave it to her. Not because she'd produced children. But because she'd finally learned the truth. She had always been enough. Exactly as she was. And the people worth keeping in her life were the ones who'd seen that from the beginning. Ready for bed? Alejandro asked, extending his hand. Ready, Isabella said, taking it. As they walked back to the villa, their home, their beautiful chaotic life, Isabella had one final thought. The baby she'd had, the woman she'd become, hadn't just made her enemies beg for mercy. She'd made them irrelevant. And that was the sweetest victory of all. Thank you for taking this journey with Isabella. Her story reminds us that our darkest moments can become the foundation for our greatest triumphs. Have you ever experienced a transformation like Isabella's? Have you ever rebuilt yourself into something stronger than what was broken? Share your story in the comments below. Your courage might inspire someone else who needs to hear it. Asterisk, asterisk, and if this story touched your heart, moved you, or made you believe in second chances, please subscribe to the channel and share this with someone who needs to remember their own strength. We all deserve a happy ending. We all deserve to rebuild. We all deserve love that sees us, supports us, and celebrates us exactly as we are. Asterisk, asterisk, until the next story, remember, you are not broken. You are becoming. And your best chapters might still be ahead of you. Asterisk, asterisk, with love and gratitude. Thank you for being here, Red Heart.